Okay, go.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Chiola,
I'm Rhiannon Napoli Clemens.
I'm Michael Nusbaum.
and we are here to present a case study analysis of cultural proficiency, the missing link to student learning. And this is for Rowan University, Leadership for Social Justice, Section 2C. So a summary of the case study. This case study is overall about a lack of cultural awareness in school leaders and preparation programs. And our case study takes place in Dayton, Ohio, which has recently experienced an increase in migration. It's a medium city with a depressed economy. The foreign-born population has increased by 50%. There's an increase in crime and drug addiction. Town residents are concerned with immigrants stealing jobs, lack of integration, and language barriers. The town does offer English classes for sports events, health resources, mentorship, and helps migrant families. However, there are really no stores around for miles, and it is labeled as a food desert. Within the school, 90% of teachers and administration are white. The staff is roughly 50 to 50 male to female. There's a high teacher and school leader turnover, and Dayton School District has recently received an F on its report card. Now, our case study centers around Miss Collins, who's a principal, the new principal at Dayton High School, and she has recently earned her master's in educational leadership from an online program that was only 8 months long. And when she became school principal, the school was about to be taken over by the state. Things that she's noticed since becoming the principal is an elevated referrals for Black students. Black students have reported not feeling heard by the teachers. For example, a lot of the Black students are in trouble for talking, but they claim that it's to helping their fellow classmates as a part of their culture. The parents are starting to express unhappiness, threatening to withdraw their children from the school. Another example that was cited in the case study was that during Halloween, there was no alternative activity prepared for some of the students from different cultures and different backgrounds. And some of them reported that Halloween was very disrespectful in their culture, and there really wasn't an opportunity to do something alternative. The overall interpretation is that the teachers appear to be against learning the new cultures. And on top of that, the school counselor disclosed that many students are unsure of their sexuality and in turn are being bullied by other students.
And I'll talk about the analysis of the case study. So the analysis has revealed several issues, both within the backdrop of the town and the high school itself. There's lack of cultural education among staff and unprepared leaders. A lot of the staff and the leaders are culturally blind. They just they don't understand the cultures, especially the diverse cultures, that well, and know how to facilitate education within a diverse population. There's a lack of consistency from teacher to teacher and administrator to administrator. So everyone's kind of working in silos. And then there's a lot of turnover. So there's a lack of consistency for the students because they don't benefit from the same teachers because the teachers are constantly putting in new teachers coming in. Basic needs such as food are challenging to acquire. In the case study, it talked about that it was a big food desert and the town didn't have many supermarkets in it. There's a lack of diversity amongst staff and leaders, which doesn't reflect the student body. There's disproportionate Black students who are receiving referrals mainly for discipline. And the achievement gap between white and Black students is quite vast. The community fears migration. There's rapid flux of immigrants coming into the town, and the population is changing. And instead of embracing and including, they feel fearful, and there's a lot of bullying. especially amongst the different groups. The town is divided into different social economic areas, where, maybe the wealthier would live in, they live in a little enclave, and then, the less wealthy live, in a specified part of town, but it's not mixed. And then the school has an F rating, so they are in danger of being taken over by the state. All right.
So some of the issues, the social justice issues that we identified in the case and the analysis, we've listed here, and we really were able to cluster them into four related but separate areas. So the clusters are community issues, cultural issues, professional preparation or development or the lack thereof, and the achievement gap issues. So we'll talk more about them on the next slide, and a little bit about how they're in particular related to social justice issues. So for the community issues, we have the socioeconomic status divide that Mike talked about, migration, the fact that it's a food desert, and redlining. And the socioeconomic status divide is really reinforced and heightened by the redlining that happened throughout the 20th century. And they relate to social justice issues because we see that opportunities are different for different students, depending on their socioeconomic status divide. Migrated students are feeling rejected by the community and teachers who are not culturally competent or culturally proficient. Food scarcity affects basic student performance. So when students' needs aren't being met, they're not able to achieve in school. And of course, redlining is just reinforcing that poverty cycle. On the cultural issue side, we see that teachers are practicing equality, but we know that equity produces better results. We see that the marginalized students are being ignored and they're not served. There's a lack of respect for these migrant families. We also know that bullying creates a hostile environment leading to social isolation linked to poor academic performance. Students don't see their identity reflected in this staff. So that's leading to lower levels of trust and then thus lower levels of engagement and eventually achievement as well. And then of course, xenophobia is contributing to biases and inequitable discipline practices as well. And you could see all of our sources there as well. Chris?
So on the administrative side, there's a lack of preparation, which means the staff may be under-equipped to serve all the students. Preparation programs that focus on social justice may lead to more equitable achievement. And also, the high teacher turnover correlates to low math and ELA scores, particularly in low-performing and Black students. On the achievement issues, teachers are not tailoring instruction to marginalized groups. Biases are leading to the targeting of Black students for increased disciplinary measures, and there is a direct relationship between racial discipline gap and the racial achievement gap. And finally, teachers lack efficacy in educating MLLs or multi-language learners and hold biases towards MLLs, blaming them for poor test scores, also known as deficit thinking.
And so we're going to talk about how these affect educational institutions, either whether it be P12 higher education, and we'll talk about it from different angles, such as the structures, educational institutions, teachers, and so forth. So with structures, the white students might turn into teachers as a result of good experiences, and marginalized students they turn away from school, reinforcing the cycle of disinvesting and in a marginalized community. So there's a potential state takeover, giving the power to those outside the community. And then in the educational institutions realm, it's predominantly white leaders without training to lead, and then which leads to the issues that we saw in the case at both the high school and collegiate levels. School success is impacted, and control, is ultimately taken away if the state does take over. And the teachers, they're not serving the marginalized students. They're frustrated with the change or constant change of leadership, and then they burn out and eventually leave. Teachers leave the career field, leading to a shortage of qualified teachers and increased student-teacher ratio, which means more stress. And, it's a suboptimal environment. In regards to policies, so it leads the policies that favor dominant group as white students and families are perceived as more engaged or intelligent, and high scores support the school funding formula. So in other words, is that they're perceived in some way, then they're kind of pushed in that way, and then they're going to, they're the ones who are going to drive those scores up so that they, and then the divide just gets bigger. Then parents, they lack the lack of voice from parents, and engagement is direct link of lack of academic achievement. As we know, is the biggest factor for academic achievement is actually parent involvement. So that's huge. And then parents lack faith in schools and the ability to educate the children. And students, they feel marginalized, not vested. The achievement gap increases, and then certain parents are pulling students from school because of these issues.
So for our next 4 sets of slides, we're going to discuss the different roles and responsibilities at all the various levels of control or power or support within this case study. And then we'll also go over our recommendations for each of those levels as well. So we'll start with the state. The state roles and responsibilities, it's really to provide top-down support to all of the districts so that the students are engaged. They want to make sure that there's awareness of and compliance among their policies, programs, and services that the state can provide to all of the schools. They also are responsible for providing regular communication with school districts to collaborate on issues, concerns, and share best practices. They also have a responsibility to ensure that if there is a state takeover, that action plans and policies enacted are in the best interests of students and consider second and third order consequences. So making sure that there's no unintended consequences that could negatively impact those students is really important. Of course, the state is to provide oversight on the quality of education that students receive within their state, to advocate for schools and districts at the state and national level, and then to partner with the teachers union. So that's really a key piece here, is that they are a good faith actor in supporting that union so that the teachers who are on the ground doing the work feel supported to teach and to be there in the classroom on the ground. The recommendations that we have for the state are to ensure adequate support for districts, communities, and schools when applying for state and federal grants and other funding resources, because we know that oftentimes it comes down to money for some of the policies and programs that different schools would want to enact. We also would recommend that the state execute a tiered system of interventions to provide sufficient resources and support for the district, so that it's not just if a district is failing or in danger of failing, that state takeover is the very first option for a full takeover, that maybe there's other interventions that could be put in place, such as a smaller level of support or smaller level of increased oversight, as opposed to a full takeover where you're removing all the leadership from that community. We also recommend that there's a working group established with district representation that uncovers and addresses similar issues that other districts may be facing. We recommend that the state engages with other local colleges and universities to collaborate and improve teacher preparation programs so that we have a pipeline of incoming really good qualified teachers to take over at some of these schools. We recommend the state increases or redistributes funding to allow for proper staffing, infrastructure, and programming. Again, funding is very, very important, and often districts with the most need don't have the funding to support that need. We recommend that the state engages diplomatically with those local unions and works towards policies that impact teacher satisfaction so that we're keeping teachers in the classroom. And we'd like the state to revisit the definition of a fully qualified school leader so that they're looking at, where are these leaders coming from? Are they prepared? Are we hiring the right people who are prepared to lead? Or maybe some of these programs that that leaders are coming from that are fully online or that are kind of shortened programs are delivered in a modified way are maybe not the best places to get our school leaders from.
Excellent. And as we approach our 15-minute mark, I'm going to speed up a little bit here to make sure we squeeze all this in. So the community roles and responsibilities really are huge, but we've got it narrowed down to 4. Essentially serving as a partner with the school. Representing community members was a key role and responsibility. Identifying and addressing community issues and working towards providing safe and equitable services to all members of the communities. Now, we have some recommendations for the community for them to start. One is to review any existing laws regarding redlining to be sure that this is not being reinforced. Work with community and private lenders to enforce equitable lending practices. We want to establish public and private partnerships to address food shortages and local economic issues. Hold town hall meetings and solicit feedback from the community in constructive ways. The community should also utilize the vast school grounds to grow and cultivate food items to help with that food shortage issue. We would like to see them also bring back the community leaders who planned the Welcome Dayton. That was the initial support and welcome for the migrant families, and look to expand the scope of that because it seemed to be working fairly well, but we think that there's probably some more that they could do with that program. And lastly, continue to apply for state and federal grants for assistance to support those migrant families.
All right, I'll also read, or should I say, go over the district roles and responsibilities. So we narrowed it down to the following, which is provide oversight and consistency of schools within the district, ensure that teachers are qualified and successful, and provide fair and equitable human resources and business practices for all schools and employees within the district. Apply for state and national level grants, procure the different federal funding programs such as Title I for districts that have a majority of students living in poverty. So in the recommendations for the district are establish administrator mentorship or programs within the district, redefine professional development to routinely incorporate cultural proficiency best practices, consider occasional offsite development opportunities, for teacher morale, engaging with HR to ensure that the recruitment pool of educators is diverse and reflective of the community, launch an aggressive campaign geared towards free and reduced lunch, along with other opportunities for family assistance, showcase success stories of vocational students or programs, and consider creating a position titled Community Support Liaison, just to focus on additional support such as food programming, safety, etc.
Finally, the school leader roles and responsibility are to ensure that first, they themselves are culturally proficient and move through cultural pre-competence to full cultural proficiency to make sure they're serving their students appropriately. They should pass this knowledge on to the staff and ensure that it's incorporated in the curriculum. They should make sure that the professional development is continuous and should always work towards cultural competency and cultural proficiency. Principals should engage with staff to ensure that the bully prevention is happening. The principal should work with HR to ensure that new hires are reflective of the community that they serve, and the principals should routinely conduct climate assessment with the staff. The recommendations that we have is for the principal to do a site visit to successfully engage migrant populations, create a holding tank or a space for teachers to kind of vent or share successes. They should utilize the land that they have to potentially have a garden or farming community project to help feed the population and instill a sense of community pride. They should ingrain cultural proficiency framework into the mission vision of the schools, frame professional development around the 5 elements of cultural competence or proficiency. The principal should review the hiring practices to ensure that they're all fair and equitable to make sure that you get the best staff in the building as well. On the next slide, you can see all of our references that we have. And finally, thank you for watching our presentation tonight. We welcome any comments or any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.